Let's walk through the agent lifecycle to understand how Mosaic AI helps you build high-quality agents. Today, we're going to talk about collecting feedback on a pre-production agent from a larger group of stakeholders. So at this point, you've already fixed a handful of quality issues, and you have quality at a level where you're ready for folks to test your agent. Some of the challenges we've heard from customers. How do I quickly create a chat UI for stakeholders to test the agent and give feedback? How do I track each piece of feedback that I get and have it linked to what's happening in the bot so I can actually debug the issues? How do I do this without spreadsheets? And then, once I've gotten hundreds of pieces of feedback, how do I at scale use this feedback to investigate and fix quality issues? Let's switch over to Notebook and see how this works with Mosaic AI. Here, I have a function calling agent that has a couple of tools in it that I've iterated on the quality of and I'm ready to deploy. You can see the code and the configuration of this agent. It's using GPT-4 and it's got a handful of tools. Let's first just inspect what this agent is doing with ML flow tracing. We can see the agent is calling a vector search tool and returning a response back to the user. Great. So next, I need to deploy this into a chat UI. How do I do this with Mosaic AI? First, I'm going to log my agent to ML flow. So here, let me walk you through the code to log this to ML flow. First, we're going to identify all of the Databricks resources that we're using inside the agent. In this case, I have an LLM, a vector search index, so on and so forth. I do this because Databricks will automatically provision secure credentials inside my served agent for these resources. Next, I'll use MLflow to log the model. I'll point it at the Python model, the configuration, as well as its input-output signature, and which Python packages it needs to run. So now let me call this code to log the model. Now that I have the model logged to a run inside my MLflow experiment, let's take a look at what's logged in here. I have the model's code, I have its configuration, and in here, I also have the resources that I'm using. Now, let me import Agent Framework. Agent Framework will help me shift this agent from an MLflow logged model to a highly scalable REST endpoint, as well as a chat UI that I can share with my stakeholders. So I'll run this while I explain the code. First, we'll register the model into the Unity catalog. Next, I'll call agents.deploy on this Unity catalog model, which will create a model serving endpoint, as well as the review application, the chat UI, inside Databricks. So here we can see that it started to deploy. I have a link to the chat UI, as well as the REST endpoint, should I want to implement my own UI. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the model serving endpoint. So I can see here, I have the agent deployed as an endpoint. As well, I have an endpoint for collecting user feedback. I'll show you how this works in a second. From here, I can either use the agent in a playground if I want to test it myself, or I can open the review app, which I can share with any person inside my company who's in the SSO, even if they don't have Databricks access. So let's open the review app. Here, I'll start a new chat, and maybe I'll ask, what is the Blender able to do? The review app will call the REST endpoint for model serving, return an answer. Now, my subject matter experts and my stakeholders can look at these answers. They could say, was this a good or a bad response? Maybe this isn't great. It wasn't very helpful and it was too short. They can submit that feedback. They can optionally edit the response. Maybe this was incorrect. Save it. They can also look at what documents and tools were used by the agent and provide feedback on those. So here we can see the information that was retrieved by the vector search. This does look helpful. Great. So now I need to look at this feedback at scale, as well as look at the individual records. So first, let me show you looking at one individual record. Now, the nice thing about using the review app and agent framework to deploy it is we automatically capture all of these requests, responses, as well as the ML flow traces inside a Delta table using inference tables. Let me switch back over to the notebook. Here, I can query that inference table, and I can click on any of these, and I can see exactly what's happening inside my bot. So this is great for debugging. If a user said, hey, maybe this question was not behaving as expected, I can debug and understand what's happening. Now, what happens when I have hundreds of users trying out my pre-production bot? I probably want some type of dashboard. So with agent evaluation, you can switch on a monitoring job that will automatically look at the quality, cost, and latency of all the responses that are coming back through the review app. To turn this on, I'd put the agent's endpoint's name here, and I'd schedule this as a job. I've done that before this demo, so let me open up that dashboard. Here, I can see an AI BI dashboard with all of the logs from the review app. I can see how many requests I'm getting over time. I can look at the latency. And I can see that thumbs up, thumbs down feedback that was being passed. Now, I'm consistently getting some negative feedback, so let's dig into those. I can come down here and I can look at the LLM Judge quality-based analysis. So here, agent evaluation is running its suite of judges to understand what's happening in production. I can see overall where there are quality issues. I can look at what topics were being discussed by my users, and then I can dig into quality issues. With these, when I dig down into a specific issue, I can come and I can actually load the same ML flow UIs that I've been using in my inner development loop to debug and look at these issues. Let's take a look. Here, I can say the same familiar UI that I was using in my inner development loop with agent evaluation. I can click into an individual question. If I wanted to see the trace, I could click here. Then I can also see the full analysis done by agent evaluation.